Welcome to Hustle and Pro Season 2, talking sports in Frisco from youth to pro. Now here's your host, Kelly Walker.
Welcome to this episode of Hustle and Pro. I'm your host, Kelly Walker, and we have our friend Suad Bejtovic with us. He's going to school us on all things going on in the world of chess right now. So there's actually a lot to talk about. I'm really excited. Suad, you have all the info for today. You're gonna kind of drive this bus because you know all the good stuff. All I've done is watch a documentary or two and played a few games of chess on my phone. You're way ahead of me, obviously, and so I want to hear about that. I want to hear your life in chess, and then let's talk about a couple of the pop culture things happening and why everybody else seems to be talking about chess lately too.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of interesting to mention that, your podcast is related to sports. So some might ask, why are we talking about chess? Is chess a sport? And that's like a question that we're not going to touch these days because it's a very contentious one out there in the world. Even some of the best players out there say that chess is not really a sport because there's not an athletic component. But then there's research that says, players lose 5 pounds, in the course of one game because of all the brain activity and the calories that they burn just by thinking. So, there are aspects of all of that, and definitely there's a competition aspect, which we'll talk about quite a lot today.
I mean, I do think it's a sport. I don't think all sports have to be physical.
Right.
There's a lot of things that we do that we compete. I see it more of the competition side of it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I don't think, I'm not saying chess players are athletes, but I do think chess is a sport.
Yes. And it's interesting you mentioned that because in their preparation for the grueling schedule that they usually have, a lot of chess players actually watch what they eat, they exercise. I mean, they have to keep in shape simply because it actually requires so much effort mentally to play chess.
All right, so start us off with, I don't know, like what's the phenomenon lately that people like me who are, I wouldn't even say I'm a casual chess player. Like, I'm not even that, and this last year, it's on my radar.
Yeah.
So why is that?
Well, unfortunately, one of the main reasons is because of the pandemic, and a lot of people are just kind of stuck in their homes with not much to do, right? However, before I get to that, I want to kind of rewind a few more years because over the last, we'll even say 5 to 10 years, chess has been growing in popularity, especially on online streaming platforms, YouTube and Twitch in particular, because it lends itself so good to online presentation. You have websites where you can play chess. Chess.com and lichess.org are the most popular. And then all the best players in the world play on those chess sites. There are millions of other people all across the world who are members of those sites. So it's actually relatively easy to just go online, pick up a game of chess, and play. In addition to all of that, there's been a surge of content creators, which are usually really strong chess players, international masters or grandmasters, and they put out videos where they talk about, I don't know, a certain opening, or they maybe analyze a certain game, or they maybe talk about a current event that might be going on in the world of chess. So chess has been kind of gaining steam, especially last year. Chess.com in particular, the website that's probably the biggest one, they got a lot of chess personalities to kind of come on board and help them promote chess as a game, and it just exploded in popularity just because there were so many more people that were playing it.
I see the irony there. This is a game that is played on a board, right? Traditionally.
Yeah. For the last couple of thousand years, right?
Yeah. So you go from this traditionally in-person, one person game on a board to what I'm hearing you say is now they've made it accessible because of making it digital and accessible.
You can play it on your phone.
And they've just jumped on board with like getting in engagement from people online.
That's right.
So it's made the leap.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, again, unfortunate that, the regular chess that we are used to, which most people call OTB or over the board, when, two players are, looking over the board at their pieces, is almost non-existent. But before I go any further, I have to mention that last year, in 2020, in March, The last event that got canceled, actually, they started the event and then they canceled it halfway through, was the tournament to determine the challenger to the world champion. It's called the Candidates Tournament because all of those guys are candidates for to be the challenger.
So that tournament determines who gets to challenge the reigning champion. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that's kind of the system that the world of chess has. And when the pandemic started, the tournament was in Russia, and they kind of decided to kind of stick around as long as they can and play as many games as they can. But once the flights started shutting down and everything else, the players kind of had to bolt. And that tournament was interrupted literally exactly halfway through. And there was an interesting tidbit of information because one of the players decided that he was not comfortable playing in the tournament because they were seeing the virus kind of starting to spread, and he decided to withdraw. So they replaced him with another guy. So the first guy, his name is Rajabov, and they replaced him with a French player, Maxime Bachir-Lagrave. And so halfway through the tournament, Maxime Bachir-Lagrave is leading the tournament. I think he's the co-leader with a couple of others. And meanwhile, they stopped the tournament, and Rajabov is like, hey, if you're going to continue this tournament, what about me, right?
Me?
So there was a lot of controversy around that, and the solution was that Rajabov is going to get automatic entry into the next candidates tournament.
Is that like a year away, though?
A couple of years away, yes. And then this year, they're going to finish this tournament, which is, still kind of suspended in there. Yeah.
So there was no winner of that?
Not yet, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they have to play.
Crazy.
Yeah, so they have to play like 8 or 9 more rounds, and that's going to happen later this year.
Wow.
And then at the end of the year, winner of that tournament plays for the world
all
championship.
the other sports that had to hit pause, they figured out a way to resume somehow. But so yeah, I mean, I could see though that's a big tournament in Russia, like you said. You can't easily maybe pick back up and get that exact group back together.
Right, especially not back then. Right, they have to kind of put it on pause and they'll continue it later on. But as we speak right now, our listeners in the future probably know the outcome of the tournament that's going on right now.
Okay.
It is an over-the-board tournament in Wijkanze in Netherlands. It's like one of the oldest tournaments in the world and usually has hundreds and hundreds of players playing in different categories and different sections. But this time around, I think there's only 14 of them. And they are playing over the board. They have very strict COVID protocols. And one of the American players, Fabiano Caruana, is actually one of the co-leaders of the tournament as we speak. There's 3 more games to go. So he may end up winning that tournament, hopefully. Yeah.
That was an American name?
Yes, Fabiano Caruana, yes. And the reason he's playing is because he lived in Europe throughout that whole time. There are American players who are just as good as him who were not able to travel to Europe because of these restrictions and take part in that tournament.
All right, you've mentioned Russia and the Netherlands and all these places where chess is more popular than it is here, I'm sure. But tell me really quick, what's your personal connection with chess?
I started playing chess as a kid. That's usually kind of how it happens. My dad was a really strong player.
And tell us where you grew up.
I grew up in Bosnia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, back in Europe. Learned chess when I was, I don't even know, like 5, 6, or 7 years old. I was very interested in playing. And the most important part is I was not all the way discouraged by the fact that my dad was beating me every game, right? And he didn't want to let me win, so I had to kind of figure it out. And then once I figured it out, I joined some local clubs and, played 1 or 2 tournaments, lost some games, won some games. And I always had that kind of fascination with chess. And I also like to mention that when I had teenagers in our household, I was making fun of them for watching other people play video games, right? Because that's really popular on
sports.
On Twitch and YouTube. And then I caught myself watching other people playing chess, or not even that, but watching other people talk about other people playing chess. And then I was like, okay, there's something interesting there. So
I know, I hear what you're saying, because it is a weird phenomenon. Thinking we see the kids doing it, but then if you step back and go, okay, well, hold on. We watch sports commentators comment about sports all the time.
Right, and point out things that we don't necessarily see in the moment. And then we're like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And we watch tape of games again and players. And there's a lot of ways that we can consume, sports that isn't the actual organic game part of it. So, yeah, we got to give the kids a break sometimes.
Yes.
Because sometimes when they're watching those things, you watch them to get better. You pick up things.
Exactly.
You gain knowledge by watching others do the thing you want to go do.
And that actually brings me to the next step in the evolution of chess. Sometime in the last 10 years or so, St. Louis Chess Club was really popular. It was founded by a financing millionaire in St. Louis, and he was able to create tournaments with large prizes that would attract highest rated players in the world. He would attract grandmasters who would come there and teach camps or classes or and so on, and create videos. And then those videos can serve basically as a studying tool. You can watch those videos about a particular opening or some kind of a pattern in certain games, and then you can improve your game by watching those videos. And of course, that type of content became very popular. And by now, I have a number here that in December of 2020, there were 2.8 million viewer hours for just one chess streamer.
Oh, wow.
In the month of December.
Wow.
His name is Hikaru Nakamura. He is an American grandmaster, one of the best players in the world. Definitely one of the best blitz chess players in the world, or speed chess players. And he has a very popular Twitch channel. Every time you tune in, there's at least 15 or 20,000 people watching him play or do puzzles or do whatever.
Do whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
At this point, if he's gotten to that point, it doesn't matter what he's doing.
That's right.
Just want to watch him.
Now, I will say that by the time I got to him on that list, he was number 50 on overall list of Twitch streamers, but he was first in the chess category. So obviously there are other streamers that are more popular, but chess is in the conversation.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Okay, can we talk about the Queen's Gambit?
Absolutely. Let's talk about it.
This is my very novel attempt at understanding things. Ryan and I watched it kind of late in the game. I think everybody had already seen it, and then we jumped on board, and I loved it. I thought it was weirdly fascinating.
It is, and it was really good. Really good story. It was based on a book that I think came somewhere in the 80s by Walter Tevis. It was called the Queen's Gambit. And whenever I watch a movie that has anything to do with chess, I pay attention to the chess part, right?
Yeah, the technical pieces of it.
Yeah, and some movies or shows, they just kind of set the pieces, so that they look good. And
it's like a prop, kind of.
Right, yeah. But
I have a feeling this was a little more than that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They were really, really careful to make sure that the chess part of the show is really well done. And then later I found out that one of the consultants on the show was Garry Kasparov, who is a chess champion, world champion for over 20 years. He's probably one of the 5 best players of all time, right?
Wow.
So he was one of the consultants. And the cool thing is that the last game of the show is actually based on a real game.
Like the moves are legitimately what happened in the
Absolutely. And then at one point, Gary and a couple of other people, with the help of computer engines, they found a better continuation for one of the players. And that's the continuation that we see in the show. We actually see exactly the moves, and there are many videos and articles on YouTube where you can find out analysis of that game. But to me, it was really cool that, it wasn't just, actors moving pieces on a board. It was an actual game, and they created into something that's very dramatic and that could actually happen.
Are the names of everybody, are those real life names? Is there really a Beth Harmon? Are those just characters?
They are characters. I was told that Beth Harmon was a composite of a couple of different characters. And one of them is somebody that pretty much anybody in the United States can mention if you ask, name a chess player.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
All right, but most people will say Bobby Fischer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There you go. Right.
I mean,
Bobby Fischer was the first American and so far the only American chess world champion. He was a great personality. There was a boom in chess that followed his career.
And the only reason I know that name is from a movie made about him.
Yes.
Like, I don't even know that that's a real person.
Yes,
so, yeah.
and I'd love to mention one of the movies that I watched recently called Searching for Bobby Fischer, because of the popularity of Queens Gambit, all of these chess movies are kind of coming up. So I watched that one for the first time recently, and it's actually really, really good, and I would recommend everybody to watch it. So Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Okay.
But to go back to Queen's Gambit, yes, it kind of follows a little bit of the career of Bobby Fischer because he was kind of like a child prodigy. But there are many other influences and players that Beth Harmon plays throughout her career are not actual players. There are characters, but it kind of shows the world of chess at the time more or less accurately. Obviously, some things are either sped up for the dramatic effect or for storytelling, but for the most part, that is a very accurate description of chess world.
So I'm not asking if you take tranquilizers to enhance, the way you see the game, but can you relate to how she can, visualize moves being played and like. She's obviously was at an obsessive point with trying to be better and master the game. But as a chess player, do you do that in your head?
I try to. I'm not always successful, but people who are successful at it do those visualization exercises. Specifically in the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, Ben Kingsley plays an old grandmaster. That movie was based on a true story. And he says, don't make a move until you see all of it. Right, so you kind of have to figure it out. It's called calculation. Chess players say you have to calculate what happens if you do this, and then your opponent does that. So you kind of have to visualize that in your head. And actually, Hikaru, who I mentioned a minute ago, a lot of times when he plays online, he'll look up and just kind of
and that's probably what he's doing.
Pause and yeah, it's kind of like they look away from the board just so they can see it in their head, and then they come back and
see
play
how it would play out. See, that's why I say, I mean, obviously chess people are smart and intelligent, but that's where I get lost. I don't get to see several steps ahead,
right?
Like in that sport.
I
can in other sports that I'm used to playing. Like I can see a play develop or whatever, but I don't understand me moving this chess piece, why that is probably going to make you move that one a certain way. Like I just don't see 4 or 5 steps ahead like everybody can.
And what's interesting about chess is it's one of those games that, as the saying goes, it's easy to learn, but it takes a lifetime to master. And obviously it's very popular on that, 5 to 10 years old level, right? Where kids are just kind of learning how the pieces go and all that. But there's so much more to learn after that. And the best players in the world dedicate their lives to it. That they practice, 8 hours a day. That's their job, right? Because they travel from tournament to tournament, compete for prizes and so on. The very best of them get into that candidates tournament. They try to be the champion of the world, right? So it can be anywhere from just a casual hobby, which it is for me, but it can be, something that people want to do a little bit more seriously.
Master, yeah. So how casual is it? How often do you play? Are you, not when we're in a COVID situation, but in normal, do you play tournaments? How do you play?
So I was looking for chess clubs to play in right before COVID happened, and I found a couple of places in Frisco where you can play chess, and then I actually went to the website for the U.S. Chess Federation to look up any more. So uschess.org, and then you can look up affiliates. And so I have here that there's an Independence Pro Chess Club at the Independence High School in Frisco. Okay. There's Smart Chess Champions, which is a business here in Frisco. And we can use the show notes to kind of leave
definitely.
These.
Smart Chess Champions is a business here in Frisco.
Right. Okay. Yes, just on the street here on Main Street. There's 64 Squares USA, which also has a Frisco address. And finally, Big Star Chess Club. also here in Frisco. So quick shout out. There are clubs here that players can join and play. I haven't, but I was just kind of in the process of figuring out a few of those chess clubs that do have rated tournaments where you can join the U.S. Chess Federation, get a rating, play against other players, which in a lot of cases might be, 12-year-old kids.
Right. But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. And in a lot of cases, they'll be better than I am.
So you're not rated yet?
I am not,
okay.
no.
I saw a social media comment about you being rated, and I thought, oh boy.
That's my chess.com rating. So, and on chess.com, you have different types of games depending on the speed of the game. So obviously the slower games where you get to think a little bit more, you're going to find better moves, and you're usually going to be more successful. So my rating is a little bit inflated there. But my Blitz rating, which is a little bit more popular online, is about 1,300 or so.
Wow.
And I will mention that part of the reason why Blitz chess is more popular online is that there's less opportunity for people to cheat.
I was going to ask you, can you cheat?
Yes, you can. So sometime, I have an article somewhere here, I think it was in 95. Gary Kasparov, which we mentioned earlier, best player in the world at the time, probably one of the best players ever. He was playing a series of matches that some of your listeners may remember against, I think it was called the Deep Blue, the IBM chess computer.
Yeah.
He barely won the first one, and then they made some modifications to the computer, and next year he actually ended up losing. Pretty shortly after that, computers ended up being far better than humans at chess. And
which they should, I guess, if it's, there's calculations, there's a finite amount of spaces and moves. And
that's right. And they can assess the position.
Yeah.
They say, okay, if I played this, I'm going to be better.
Percentages and
then, yes,
like that, yeah.
Exactly.
So like IBM Watson can calculate it really quick and beat most people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So back in the world of Beth Harmon, there's one game that's adjourned in the show, right? They get to a certain point and then they adjourn. They spend some time, with their friends, and they say, okay, maybe this will be the best move, and then if he plays that, then we can go into this variation. Well, when computers came around, everybody could just look that up on the computer and prepare for the game, and the next day they could win. So there are no more adjourned games. They are played all the way through the end, from start to finish.
That's a thing of the past.
Yes.
But then when they adjourned, did they have to seal their next move in an envelope?
That's right.
To help for the next move.
Right, but the other player doesn't know what the move is, right? So they kind of have to prepare for a variety of moves. Yeah, that was because
it kept it interesting.
Right, because that player commits to that move. It's just that the other player doesn't know, and then they get to prepare a response to any possible moves that. But
they don't do that anymore.
No.
That practice is gone.
Right. And then if you play online, there are tournaments where there are cash prizes and such. And if you want to qualify for the cash prizes, you have to verify your account. In a lot of cases, you have to have multiple cameras. You have to share your screen.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because you can have a computer play a game on the second screen, and then you can see what you can play or something like that, right?
So they're like watching. They want to make sure a human is playing that game, actual game.
That's right. And that's especially the case with invitational tournaments like U.S. Championship that was played last year. I believe it was October, November. Players are invited to play, but they have to agree that, they have to have a camera behind them. They have to do this and that. And all in the effort to minimize the potential for cheating. Now, that's not to say that you can't cheat in-person games, because there have been grandmasters who have been caught going to the restroom where somebody left a phone, and they can look up moves on the phone, because literally even the computer inside your phone is stronger than any human chess player in the world. So there have been scandals like that.
All those cheating instances involve technology with the computer. Yes. I mean, are there ways to cheat, though, if you're sitting on OTB with someone? Like, I don't know. I can't imagine unless the other person just doesn't catch that you did something illegal.
Right. I mean, you had situations in the old days where people were accused of having like an earpiece where somebody is giving them moves or, something like that.
Feeding them information.
Right, yeah. Or, if you have a game going on, don't ask your friend to, what should I play in this situation, right? And so to go back to what I was saying originally, when you have blitz games where you have only 5 minutes, when you only have 3 minutes for the whole game, you don't have time. Yeah, to go over here.
It's you, and you got to figure it out.
That's right. And so some of these streamers who are usually really strong players themselves, international masters or grandmasters, they only play 3-minute games because they know that if they play even a 5-minute game, that gives the opponent the time to look up moves. And play them in time to beat them. Wow.
Those scenes in the Queen's Gambit when they were doing this speed chess was always really intense because, the multiple player one was like when she was really little and she was playing all of the kids at the high school club, that was interesting. But then the speed when she would, lose those bets after bets and then figure it out later. But those are intense. I think that's why the game is so unique to me is that very rarely are there other games when it is just one person and what they have in their minds competing against one other person when they have in their minds. Because even when you think of individual sports like golf or boxing or
tennis,
you still have in tennis. Yeah, there's just there's still breaks and times to talk with your coach and during the match and your caddy and all these other like parts of your team. Whereas chess feels very
you're on your own,
independent.
Yeah, that's true, and it's very individualistic, and because of that one-on-one aspect, it's actually easier to determine who's a better player. And I mentioned ratings earlier. You can get a rating with any national federation, U.S. Chess Federation here in the States. FIDE is the international organization that manages the game of chess around the world, and they have their own rating system. So nobody is underrated or overrated in chess, right? Because they play other players who have their own rating, and based on those ratings, using some complicated math, they figure out whether their rating goes up if they win or down if they lose. You can always kind of know where you stand against anybody else. And bigger tournaments have sections where if you're a player under, let's say, 1,500, well, you're not going to play against the grandmaster who may be 2,600, right? Who's much higher rated than you. So they have sections where they divide the tournament.
To make the competition
a little
fair.
bit better.
What else you have on your notebook?
Well,
I know you brought some info, so I want to make sure you get it all.
So I want to mention for those of you who are, let's say, 25 years of age and younger. They may know people like XQC or Moist Critical or Mr. Beast, and people who are you and me, we've never even heard of these people, right? Those are some of the best viewed streamers and content creators on both Twitch and YouTube.
Okay.
And they actually played in a couple of tournaments last year, chess tournaments, where the best chess players of the world give them lessons. So those lessons become streams where people can tune in and watch, Hikaru Nakamura give lessons to XQC, right? So you have XQC viewers who are in the millions. You have Hikaru's viewers who are, tens of thousands. And that's obviously a great content. It's very entertaining. And then those players, those people who are brand new to chess, they play a tournament. And these grandmasters are the commentators. I wish he would play, Bishop C4 or whatever. And it's kind of fantastic fun to watch those players kind of agonize over moves and try to remember what they learned in those lessons. It's actually a lot of fun. Those tournaments are called PogChamps. It's a Twitch term. The world of online chess has their own terminology. So you have to learn that the H pawn is called Harry. You have to learn to never play F6. You have to learn all of these like little cool things.
That is cool.
And so
you got to be in the know.
Yeah, you got to be. It's kind of like an inside joke. And so I want to mention that in this third iteration of this tournament, which is coming up in the spring, I think February or March, there will be a couple of players that you might be familiar with. Rainn Wilson from The Office is going to be in the tournament. And Daniel Negreanu, who's one of the best poker players in the world, has been getting chess lessons.
Cool.
And he's going to be playing in that tournament too.
Cool.
So that's going to be kind of interesting to watch.
Some celebrity action.
Exactly, because the thing is, we like watching the best players in the world play. But honestly, people like me, I don't understand what the moves are all about, right? Because the ideas that they have in their heads are way too advanced for me. And they, we'll have commentators who will kind of break it down, but I can't quite appreciate it. But when people who are about my strength or maybe even lower play each other, I'm like, no, play that. Like I can kind of I can relate to that a little bit more. And then of course, those players have a huge following, like I said, both on YouTube and other social media. It's going to be a great fun to watch.
Very cool. I'll look out for it.
Mm-hmm. And then one last thing that I want to mention is who the characters are. Currently, the number one rated chess player in the world is also the top esports earner in the year 2020. His name is Magnus Carlsen. He's from Norway. He's been the world champion since 2000.
Norway?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been the world champion since 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long run.
8 years. He's 33 years old. He's probably at the peak of his power.
That seems young to be on an 8-year run.
Yes, a lot of these players, a lot of these streamers, they're all like 25. Hikaru is 33 also. A lot of them are in the late 20s or so.
That speaks to the future of chess. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's not an old man's game. It's an old game.
Right.
But the popular players right now are not old people.
No, that is true, with certain exceptions. My favorite chess streamer is Grandmaster Benjamin Feingold, who I believe is in his early 50s.
Okay.
And he's been one of the best players in the United States for 10 or 20 years, between let's say 95 and 2005. That was kind of his peak. But he was the Grandmaster in residence at that St. Louis chess club that I mentioned, created a lot of videos. He has a very humorous style of presentation, a lot of dad jokes, a lot of puns. It's actually really kind of fun to watch him play chess and teach chess and play his viewers, and he has a lot of inside jokes as well. He may not be as popular as some of the others, but it was kind of interesting because I just watched him in a tournament against players his own strength and stronger, and he dominated. Even though he's in his 50s, he played really strong, won all but maybe one or two of his games. So he's actually much better than people give him credit for just because he's old, right?
I think that's cool. I think that's a neat factor in the sport, is that it can be a 52-year-old man playing. It could be a 16-year-old girl playing. And if they're on the same playing level, it doesn't matter.
That's
Just
right.
sit down and figure it out. And that's very cool.
Yeah.
We don't see that a lot in
That's
a lot
true.
of different things in competitions that we see, especially international play. Like, there's just not many places where you're going to cross genders and age groups like that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
We mentioned tennis. You can't even imagine somebody in their 30s or 40s playing
don't cross
against
genders.
Right,
yeah,
right,
I mean,
exactly.
even that, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I love that. Okay, well, you've given us a lot, and do you have a lot more?
I just want to say that United States has become a little bit more of a chess power over the last 5 years or so. We have a lot of really good players. The last challenger to Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship was Fabiano Caruana, who I mentioned before. We have Hikaru. We also have Wesley So, Sam Shankland. We have a couple of other really, really good players who are in the top 20, top 50 in the world. Our Olympic team, which actually chess has an Olympiad, so not in the regular Olympics, but they have their Olympics on their own. They are very strong, right up there with China and Russia.
Oh, good. I wondered if Russia's still the powerhouse and if we're anywhere close.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely. And actually, in 2019, at that World Championship match, Caruana and Carlsen played 24 games, and they were all draws. So Caruana is like right up there with Carlsen.
Yeah.
And, I was hoping that U.S. would have a chess champion again, for the first time since Bobby Fischer. But Fabiano is doing well in that candidates tournament. So if he wins it, he gets another shot. But even some of the other players who are coming up are really strong. And I think America has a really good future in chess.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Lots of information.
I know.
It's hard to fit it all in my, somewhat shortened time frame here on this podcast format, but I'm so glad that we did this. I know that you have all this interest and knowledge, and mine's just sort of starting to peak on this. So I'm happy to learn and to hear all these names. And we'll put some of it in the show notes so that people can go click and check out some of these resources and things too. So
absolutely, and definitely with the popularity of Queens Gambit, people are picking chess up again.
Yeah,
because everybody has a chess set somewhere, right in a closet sitting somewhere,
or on their phone.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Suad. Thanks for coming in, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of Hustle and Pro. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.